Hi, Lisa. Welcome to Awaken and Align. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Laura. Thanks so much for having me. This is so exciting.
Yay! So, I just got to know you a little bit before we press record, and I feel like I've met my sister. Like, I don't even need to really know you. I feel your energy from here. So, it's so exciting to get into your story and who you really are and where you came from.
Absolutely. You're my sister from another mister. We'll have to have lunch or dinner after this for sure. Yeah.
Yes, we will. But I like to start at your origin story because I feel like it gives us a little bit more context in where you are today. So you could take that as far back as you want, like where you grew up, how you came to, um, I think you weren't born in America, right?
That is correct.
Why don't you tell your story?
Yeah. Way back. So I was born and raised in a small coastal city, just northeast of Beijing. This region I feel like most people have never heard of called Liaoning, which is like northern China. It's actually right next to Korea. I don't know if that's because I love Korean food. Some of my best friends are Korean. I don't know because I grew up in that region that's so close to it. But anyway, and I also grew up as a single mom. My dad left when I was really young, and maybe this story is familiar to a lot of Asians because when I was born and growing up, China had the single child policy, and lots of families wanted sons and not daughters. And I think a lot of times when I look at Asian girls who are adopted, and I think back to my childhood, I was like, okay, that's probably why. Because, families back then, lots of families, maybe still now, but hopefully, much less so, didn't want girls. So that was my childhood. So there was lots of hardship, and we can get into that. But I grew up in that environment. But my grandma on my mom's side used to have tea with me, and that was always really memorable and healing and nourishing. So I had that in the back of my pocket. And then I came to America. I moved to Vermont when I was 14, and that was really rough. I didn't speak any English. There were like no, let alone like AAPI folks, there were just like no BIPOC, like people of color, period. It's a pretty predominantly white state. Um, yeah, so the culture shock was unreal, but I had to learn really quickly. So I learned and I moved to Boston for college. And then after school, I worked in fashion for a really long time, like over 10 years. And I was just really burned out. I was really stressed. I was not well. And then about 4.5 years ago, I took a trip to Yunnan, which is the birthplace of tea. And I actually went with my mom. So that was also very transformative, just like traveling with my mom someone that I'm so close to and grew up with. Um, and when we were there, and I'll never forget this, I've been a tea drinker my whole life. The first day, we have this amazing rose tea from this lady who has her own rose farm. And that's what the locals enjoy. They grow these like beautiful high mountain roses, and they use it as a tea and or in pastry as a delicacy. And I'll never forget my experience. And that changed pretty much everything. And that's how the tea is born.
Hmm. Wow, that sounds like a magical place. A rose farm? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's actually in Shangri-La. So and it's a real place. So
Oh
it's
my God.
yeah, so that's why we name it after the place, Shangri-La Rose.
Mhm.
It's bordering Tibet. It grows at 10,000 feet above sea level, and it's just really, really remote. It's really hard to get to. Um, and I don't know if folks have heard of the region called Yunnan. It's also the most diverse region in China.
Mhm.
It has the most sort of minority groups that's been living their way, their craft for many, many years. Like they are less um, modern, if you want to call it that, with although I feel like those things are also changing. But yeah, it's just this really remote, different place that's very, very beautiful.
Hmm. Oh my gosh. And what was it about like being there with your mom and drinking that rose tea that you had this epiphany like, wow, I want to do this. And some people when they talk about plants and flowers and essences, like it's almost like the plant speaks to them. You know?
Absolutely. So rose is known for so many things, right? Depends on what you're into. I think most people know a rose water as a facial toner, but rose tea is also, or just rose in general, is heart opening. Like if you go into like, maybe ancient like Indian modalities, I think like chakras, like heart chakra. Um, so rose is, and that's what I had. It was just, and it was also like sensory, right? Like when I think of tea, especially tea here in America, it's like bag of tea, you dump it in some hot water, you chuck it because that's what you drink. This was different. It was so special. And the lady was like, oh, take a sniff. She's like, just so aromatic, and the visual beauty of imagining a dried flower after steeping in a cup of like hot liquid, it comes back alive again, this transformation. And I feel like it also brought me back alive a little bit, if you can imagine that. It was just so beautiful, like the whole experience was so memorable. And she was so nice, and we were talking, we were getting to know each other, and she made me a cup of rose tea. It was just so beautiful. I'll never forget it. And when I came back to New York, I felt like I have to do this, like I think for most folks who enjoys tea, myself included, have never seen, heard, let alone try anything like it. And I felt like it was my responsibility and purpose to bring it to everyone so other people can try it.
Hmm. And and at that point, did you go to study tea? Did you go study herbs or flowers?
Yep. So I kind of just went bananas. I bought every book I can imagine. I mean, I kind of started doing it even before I took the trip because I just was really fascinated as, the whole wellness was changing so much, like within the last 5 or 10 years. So I was just like really studying like tea and the region, where it came from, how people processed it, like obsessively.
Mhm.
So when I came back and when I knew I wanted to do this, it was just like Googling the shit out of everything.
Mhm.
Because my background, it's not in herbal medicine,
Mhm.
it's not in tea, it's not even in food and beverage. And I learned everything from scratch on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you were doing
And that was rough.
fashion. You were doing
Yeah, I
fashion.
worked in fashion, my
Yeah,
whole career. Yeah.
fashion. Wow. So that's something that a lot of people ask me. They're always like, "How did you start your own business?" And I'm like, "I started my business as I was in finance. Like it was almost a side hustle, and then
Yeah.
um like I had to do it at the same time to like make money." So when did you feel it was the right time to like let go of the fashion and then do this full time? Did you have like money saved up? Was your tea just like help us grow?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I feel like maybe not a lot of people talk about it. So for me, before this, I had a different small business and it was in fashion. I was really obsessed with sustainable fashion. So I went to Peru and got these like alpaca yarn because
Hmm.
knitting is more sustainable than
Hmm.
cotton sewn, like woven garments. And it was a similar experience in a sense that like I went somewhere and I thought it was amazing and I wanted to bring it alive and share it with everyone I know and the world. So that's what I had experience in. But the edible, the herbal, the tea part was really hard. I took all of my savings from that first business and put it in the new business, the tea.
Hmm.
And honestly, I still not getting paid. Like we're not taking a salary because we're bootstrapping. All the money just goes right back into the business between getting inventory and hiring people, and everything. And I think everyone has, a different situation. So it just depends on what you want to do, what you feel comfortable with. I clearly understand my path. It would not work for everyone, but yeah, so that's how I got started.
Thank you for being honest, because yeah, not a lot of people talk about it. I did the same thing. When I quit my finance job, I used all of my 401k and all of my savings to like um, keep myself afloat and like learn things and take classes. Um, you got so much press though. Like you got into Vogue and like how did you? I mean, your company is so aesthetically beautiful that I'm just like it like takes my breath away. And even the way you were describing that rose ceremony, you were just like, wow, how are you able to get that you know attention from publications like that?
Yeah, I think I'm really lucky in a sense that flowers are so beautiful. Like there are some studies done why flowers make people happy or they bring joy, but it's universal.
Mm-hmm.
No matter who you are or no matter who it is, you give them a bouquet of flowers, that's going to bring, a smile to their face. And studies have done, patients in the hospital, if you gave them flowers or plants that's flowered in their room versus patients don't, like the people with the flowers and plants are happier. And we can talk about the energetics of plants and flowers.
Yes.
But in my studies, and I'm also a student of Qigong, I don't know if you've heard of it or know what it is, but basically, um, my grandmaster tells a story that flowers actually have the most chi, and chi means like life energy or life force. And because when plants flower, they're at the peak of their life, and the flower is actually the fruit of this energy.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from how beautiful they are, they're energetically just extremely healing for people. Whether you're just looking at it, you like smile when you're looking at a flower because it's so stunning. When you drink it as a flower tea, it helps you from the inside out, and also just like a very sensory because you smell it, the aroma or aromatherapy, right? Like a flower has that healing modality. And then you're tasting it, you're working with your hands, and then there's a sound. So it's just a very, it can be a very meditative ritual for almost everyone if you want to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did, and you actually answered my second question, which is the energetics of flowers versus like herbs. And what I know about flowers is they also have the sexual organs in them, which makes them more like potent in their creative energy.
Absolutely.
Is there
Yeah.
anything else you wanted to say about the energetics of flowers and like why flowers specifically are more or less potent than um like I don't know, green tea or like a mugwort tea or something like that?
And I'm still a student of this, and I think there's so much to be studied still, because I think flowers is a little bit of an uncharted territory for most people. From my experience, flowers are different in a sense that I think they're just more holistically or sensory, right? Like sensory based versus something that's a little bit less sensory, but just like I always compare it to like a supplement or a powder, right?
Mhm.
There's less of that sensory stuff. It's a powder. Like it doesn't look much too complicated or exciting or attractive, but you're using it because you feel like that's more potent. But the flower is more about the whole thing,
Mhm.
if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense. And for those listeners who don't know what qigong is, do you mind defining it?
Not at all. Qigong is like, I always think of it as a um like a cousin in a way to yoga.
Mhm.
Like yoga or meditation is about it can be very meditative, right? Like meditation and yoga maybe is about stretching, and it's like a lot more to it. Qigong, it's like cultivating qi, cultivating energy. It's like the combination of both of if you're just sitting there meditating. But Qigong, it's like slow movements of like moving your energy, move your life energy, moving your qi. And your qi is something you need to do anything. So the whole concept of qi is that a all living entities contain this qi, and the universe is made of qi.
Mhm. Yes. So, just out of curiosity, clearly we all have our own specific type of chi. So, will my chi work better with a certain type of flower um or not?
That's a really good question. I think it comes down to the time of the year and your mood and like how you're feeling, right? Just like anything else, depends on like how you're feeling. If you're like sick, or you're going under like a stressful period, or you have a cold, right? For example, like chrysanthemum, which is what I'm having right now, has a very cooling energy.
Hmm.
Um, so all herbs or anything really, even human beings, right? Like in TCM or traditional Chinese medicine, goes by yin or yang, yin yang. So like cooling or warming. So they all have like either warming or cooling energy. So chrysanthemum is known for cooling and detoxing. So if you're hot, if you have a fever, drinking chrysanthemum tea, it's going to help you cool down and detox you.
Oh, I like that. Well, today is the new moon in Aries, and I'm an Aries. And in Ayurveda, I don't know if you're familiar with Ayurveda, I'm double pitta, which is fire. So they always tell me I need to drink more cooling things.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. Chrysanthemum would be
chrysanthemum would be
great.
great. Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting to know. So when I'm going onto your website, it's good to know like what I need currently in my chi and how to work with my chi, and then I can match myself to a flower.
Yeah. And also they're pretty mild. I think, most teas or herbal teas are mild enough where you can have it and not think of it. It's like, I don't know, something that's like a drug that's gonna like you're gonna feel it right away. I think with most natural remedies or healing practices, it takes a long time because your body needs like adjustments.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind. It's like mild and it's just very nourishing.
Yeah. Um, where do you get your flowers? And what kind of flowers? Are they tropical? Are they like local?
Yeah. So the rose is a high mountain rose. And that one is from Shangri-La, as I mentioned earlier. The chrysanthemum is from a region across from Hong Kong called Jiangxi, which is the origin place where chrysanthemum was born.
Oh,
um, and it used to be tributes to the royal family, hence this special varietal called royal chrysanthemum, because the royal families used to drink it. And also, it just has a fascinating history and story. In Japan, their royal seal for the country is a chrysanthemum.
oh, no way.
Yeah, I believe in Korea it's really popular as well, like a chrysanthemum tea.
Mhm.
Um, they are just known for many amazing things and prosperity as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, they've been prized for thousands of years. And I think each year there's the chrysanthemum festival in certain cities or towns where they just celebrate this flower
Mhm.
for existing and bringing them, healing, prosperity.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah. And the other core flower we have is a lotus. And the lotus is from an island called Hainan Island,
Mhm.
which is the island known as the Hawaii of China.
Wow. And do you go to these places to get them, or obviously they ship it to you, right?
Mhm. So I haven't been to the lotus farm because of COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
But other
decide to go, I'll come with you.
Yeah, come. I absolutely want to try to figure it out this year.
Mhm.
Definitely next year to go visit more.
Yeah. Well, in Korea, I don't know if they drink it, but their national flower is the hibiscus. It's a hibiscus. It's called Rose of Sharon. and there's a lot of symbology around it because it grows in very harsh conditions, and it
Mm.
kind of is symbolic of the people of Korea over many years of colonization. And I have to find out if they drink the tea, but I know it's very important to Korean people.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a hibiscus. I know in Mexico they drink hibiscus, the flower, the tea, but I
Yeah.
don't know about that specific varietal. I'll have to do some research.
Yeah. I know it's popular in different regions or cultures. And you can find hibiscus tea in like in China as well.
Hmm. So, okay, you move to America when you're like 14, and you go to fashion school around, I don't know how old you up, or like your 20s or whatever, and you're building this company. And what has your experience been like coming from China to America? I know that's a loaded question, but I'm just curious.
Um, let's see, where do I even start?
Lay it
There's
on
a
us, Miss
lot.
Lisa. Lay it on us.
Um, when I first came, it was really hard. I used to cry every night because I had no friends. I was 14. You know, you're like a new teenager going to a new
Yeah.
school where you didn't speak any English. It was just me and my mom. There was nobody that looked like me, nobody I felt that I could connect to or make friends with. But over time, of course, that's changed. Um, I would say it was really different when I first moved here. But of course, now after over 25 years, I'm pretty um, assimilated, if you will. But I think that the world is becoming a smaller place, you know, like whether if you want to say it's becoming more international or global, whether it's due to the age of internet or social media, right? You just have access to lots of different things from different culture. And I think um, people are changing, and I do believe that people want to learn other cultures things and want to be understanding and want to be good, right? And like I believe people are inherently good, but depends on what their experiences are, um that would change their perspectives. So yeah.
That's really nice. That's very generous interpretation of your experience, because I'm sure now living in New York City and the uprise or awareness of anti-Asian violence, that it can't be easy, right? Coming from,
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had my fair shares of like, go back to your country, you know, like
yeah,
at a random huge party, some white dude yelling at me. I'm like, just in shock. I'm like, what is this happening?
yeah.
Like, um, but I think I've learned and did enough years of Qigong to like try to let that go, because that doesn't serve anybody, right? Especially like me. If I'm even just trying to be selfish, that just makes me feel terrible about myself. So
Mhm.
like forgiveness and forgetting and letting go and has been something I've been learning a lot in the past couple of years, because honestly, it doesn't serve anyone and we all make mistakes. So when I think of something, someone like did me wrong, and I get so angry, like the angry Asian little girl. And I've always been that person. But then I remember, okay, I also fucked up. So let me just take one step back. And I hope that person forgive me, or I forgive myself for that one mistake I made. I can find it in my heart to forgive someone who did me wrong, because who knows what's happening in their lives.
Mhm. Have you watched Turning Red, the Pixar movie?
Yes, I love it.
It's like you wrote in one of your Instagram posts that you were an angry child, and I feel like
Mm.
I think that's just the story of an Asian child, is like we
Oh
have
my God.
so much anger and rage that we're, I don't know if it's because of Asian culture that we were told to like not let it out and not express it.
Absolutely, Asian cultures. Absolutely. Like I grew up in a household where no one ever talked about their feelings, like ever. I don't think they knew how, you know, even if they tried. Like that's why my dad left, because he never knew how to express his feelings.
Mhm.
Like they never knew how to communicate. So like people just like, I think there's a notion of like, at least like my culture when I was growing up, a lot is said in the things that you don't say, if
Right.
that makes any sense at all. Like you're just supposed to understand,
Yeah.
like, and you just hint things or you don't say things. So like communication or just expressing myself and not build up this like huge fire of anger inside of myself has been a huge learning experience and journey. That's for sure.
And you said you used Qigong to help you, but also I'm guessing with the flowers, right? Helping you
Mm,
soften and yeah.
absolutely. Everything, right? Like, and I think different people might find different things work for them. So it's like, try as much as you can and see what works for you.
Mhm.
Um, it doesn't matter, like whatever works for you, as long as it helps you in some way, shape, or form. For me, it's like morning qigong and then flower tea and journaling in the evening and lots of self-help books.
Um, I want to know what your favorite self-help books are, but before that, have you ever drank coffee?
Who?
Coffee?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Coffee?
I've had coffee. Yeah.
Do you like coffee?
It's okay. I would say if I don't know, like traveling and we're at a cafe and, they have mostly coffee, I would have a cappuccino. I'm
Mm,
not a person who's like, no, I only drink this and I don't ever drink that. Like I'm definitely very inclusive in terms of like what I ingest. It just depends on where I am, how I feel, and what's around. I think life can be flexible like that.
mhm. I love that answer. I'm always so curious because, I grew up in New York and it's a very coffee culture.
Yeah.
It's not even like Europe coffee. It's like our
Oh
coffee
yeah.
is run on Dunkin'. That's like the
Yeah.
slogan, right? It's like
Yeah.
you chug your coffee and you like get on with your day. And when I went to visit Japan and they have whole tea ceremonies and like India where everything's based on tea and like
Yeah.
sitting with your tea and doing like a little ritual, I'm just like, wow, this really is about mindfulness and just like taking a moment out of your day and not just like chugging something. And it's something that I'm trying to incorporate more of because um I'm always curious. I always ask like, are you coffee or your tea? And it kind of gives me an idea of like the kind of person, not to judge, but I was always so curious about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you said, American runs on Dunkin', like I think I think our culture here in America is pretty set in that sense of like you drink coffee to check it so you can get this like surge of like caffeine energy to get you started on the day. Coffee is in my opinion, coffee is not about being mindful. It's
Mhm.
just like you need someone to slap you in the face to wake up, to get to work or kick you in the butt. But I think I think tea from my experience is much more slower. It's about being mindful. It's about like savoring moments in your life and being present and actually tasting where you're having and smelling and feel the warmth of your cup if you're having a cup of hot tea, whatever it is, just like fully being in the moment. Sorry, my second floor New York apartment.
It's okay. It's like the soundtrack of New York City.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm on a block where there's a huge police station, so this is a constant struggle.
Yeah. Is your grandma still with us? And does she know what you do?
She's not, and she doesn't know what I do. I would
But
give
she
anything.
does, just in a different realm.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Because I think that's so like it's such a beautiful tribute to your ancestors that like that's how this all bloomed and started. And I'm sure she's around you all the time, like so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. I do think of her very often. Yeah.
Mhm. That's so healing too. Oh my gosh. Every
Yeah.
when I think about that, I kind of want to cry, but
Right? It's like, oh.
Yeah, because also, you said that you were raised by just your mom and like your matriarchal line of how this all started with your grandma, and then you went on that trip with your mom, and like
Mhm.
just the strength of women in every culture and how we've been silenced and our stories haven't been told. And now you are breaking the chain by like sharing your story, and like, and how you can literally heal and recover from your past and follow
Thank
your
you.
dreams, because like
Yeah,
now you're doing it.
you too. You too. Yeah, we're doing it.
So tell us more about your company, the Chi.
Yeah. Oof. Um, it's
Beautiful name, by the way.
oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. Most people don't know how to say it, pronounce it. It's not very good when it comes to marketing, but I think it holds such a special place in my heart because I'm a Qigong practitioner and
Mhm.
also what the word represents. Um, the company, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my career, but it's also the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Comparing to even like growing up as a single mom, having a dad not being there, coming to America, not speaking any English. It's just such a roller coaster of emotions, which I try to find inner peace through it out and not letting the highs to be too high and the lows to be too low, but just feeling everything is going to be okay. And I just have to take one step at a time, one day at a time, and that is all I can ever do.
Mm, I love that. So you really go by your intuition and not like you don't have like a, I mean, maybe you do have like a business plan or where you want to see your business, but it's really intuitive.
I have big plans.
Tell
I
us, please tell us. Set your intentions.
Yeah, so for the most part, it's a new category. It's a new thing. Like people don't know about this whole flower tea or edible flower or herbal flower. They can drink it like this. My mission is to have everyone drink this as their new thing, as a part of their daily rituals or daily routines, something they can enjoy, whether if they just want hydration because it has antioxidants in it, or for visual sensory beauty, it has that to it. Or just when you want a moment of like joy, which I think all of us need so much these days between what's happening in our world. It's crazy that we have to help ourselves in a way, and flowers can be a solution for that. So my goal is to have everyone know this exists and have it, just enjoy it every day and not being like a special thing even, a lot of times, which is amazing. And I love hearing that, like people like, oh, I save it for a special occasion because it's so beautiful. And I love that. But I think everyday life is worth celebrating because you don't know what's going to happen. Like every day is special. Like have that special moment for yourself, like daily.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I like why save the fancy bottle of champagne, or like why save the fancy, things, just use it
Yeah.
fancy cups or whatever.
Totally. It's like that fancy dress I bought 2 years ago that I never wore.
Mhm.
And I grew, like, I outgrew it. It doesn't even fit me anymore.
I think that's the panorama weight or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how do you um, prevent the bastardization of like your tea and your qigong practice? Because it is rooted in your indigenous spiritual practices, and I've just kind of seen the way that they've done that with matcha and how it has been stripped away from its original like ceremonial context. And now if you go around New York City, you see like Cha Cha Matcha and Matchaful, and they're like white people owned businesses. And matcha is a ceremonial drink from Japan. And so how can you, obviously you're the head of your company, but how can you And we were talking about reclamation before we press record. Like, how can people give reverence to these flowers and the origins of your company without bastardizing it?
That's such a good question. And I feel like a really hard question. Like lots of time. And I struggle with it like constantly. And it's funny, I actually got into it with a friend recently who is studying Ayurveda, but is French. But anyway, the gist of the story is I try to figure out every day how I can celebrate my heritage and celebrate the flowers and also the people who grow them. Like my whole thing is paying homage to the origin of them, right? Where they come from, who grow them, and how they can help you on a daily basis. And everything else, I just try to put a blinder on it. Otherwise, it's really hard to get through the day because you're just being pulled in all kinds of different directions. And yes, some days I see like brands or people like doing different things that's not paying or honoring where they come from. They just take it complete out of context. And that makes me angry. So my only solution is I can be different and I'll do the opposite of that. My solution is paying and honoring the people who grow and where they're from. That's
Mhm.
all I can ever do. And my goal is to grow this idea and perspective as big as I can to make people realize or learn, oh, there is another way, oh, maybe they can see the difference.
Mm. I think the term you're trying to use is extraction. It's like when you take something from a land that's not of your own, you extract it and you don't give reverence to the people that grew it and the hands that it went through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to spill the tea. Um,
Love it.
See what I did there?
Yeah, yeah.
I recorded an episode about a couple weeks ago by myself where I talked about the uncomfortable conversations I have to have on a daily basis as somebody who has two podcast platforms. One of them where I talk about decolonizing spirituality and wellness, but also just being an advocate for what we're talking about. It's like giving reverence, giving respect to cultures um, that we don't appropriate, but we appreciate. And that's why I said to you when I met you that I love how energy and the internet works because before you, I was interviewing somebody who has a flower company, and she is a white woman, and it was the same day that that woman in Chinatown was murdered.
Oh my God.
And that's why I was so super sensitive. Like, I was hypersensitive and aware about just being in this body, in this Asian body where it's a violent world, you know? And I just asked, after we finished our interview, I asked those questions, you extract flowers from Asia, you extract flowers from Singapore and Thailand, and what are you doing to give reverence to the people of those lands? Are you advocating for Asian women? Are you advocating for Asian bodies? You have a name of your brand that is Asian.
Oh,
Are you
wow.
giving back? Are you, yeah, basically just asking questions because I deserve to know as somebody who might be, sharing your story and sharing your company because you benefit from your customers and you get money from the very flowers that you sell. And for me, wellness and spirituality it's everything. It's a wholeness. It's in the people, it's the energy, it's the land, it's the money, right? And so to me, if I was to consume those flowers, the energetic signature of those flowers isn't whole because you're not paying back, you're not giving reciprocally to
Mm,
the people and the land, and
yeah.
you're not helping amplify Asian voices. So I said to her, I cannot, in my own integrity and my own like loyalty to what I'm doing air your podcast episode.
Oh,
And
wow.
I shared that experience, and then literally like the next day your team contacted me. And so
That's crazy.
that's what I'm saying, like when you live in your integrity and your own chi and your own energetic signature, and you're not afraid to let those things go, something else gets replaced even better. So that's just a testament to like what you just shared about your story and how I have 100% faith in this universe and how it works. And so I just wanted to share that little
Oh,
tease with
thank you.
you.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, is there anything that you want, anything else you want to talk about your company or your experience or anything else that I didn't ask you?
Um, maybe just like one thing in a sense that like I do wish people, and I think it's changing. So I think my wish is coming true in a sense that are more open to new things. I
Hmm.
think lots of times we are a culture that values like extremes in a way, right? Like you want to be known for one thing, right? Like we want to promote experts in like just one thing. And I think there's tremendous value in that, in a sense that, yes, like you only, you're, I don't even know, like you only have avocado toast, right? I'm just throwing random stuff out there now. You only have avocado toast and that's it, but you're missing out a whole world. Like
Hmm.
that's like beautiful and incredible. And if you tell me you've had everything else there is, and you go back to your avocado toast, because I've tried everything and I still only love avocado toast the most, I respect that. But
Hmm.
like for a lot of people, like they are just not open to like I think what the most beautiful things in life has to offer.
Yeah, because people are more comfortable with what they know versus the unknown,
Yes.
right? Which I can't
Yes.
relate to those people.
What's that?
I can't relate to those people because I just try everything.
Yeah, I think you're just missing out so much in life when you are so afraid of trying new things and you only do what's familiar and safe,
Exactly.
which brings me a lot of times back to my flowers. Like, I think lots of people are just like, what the heck is this? Like they don't even understand it.
Yeah.
Like in the first year or second year, even now, sometimes like people just can't even wrap their head around. I have buyers like reject me constantly. They're like, America is not ready for this.
Mhm.
Like they won't like your product. They can't taste it. They're used to coffee. Your flowers taste nothing. So bye. So that's what I deal with on a daily basis. But I just wish people were more open to trying new
Don't
things.
give up because do you know that shop Flower Power in New York City? It's
No,
the
what is
East
that?
Village. It's an herbal shop that's been in the East Village for like over 20 years, but the owner actually has her second shop up here where I live,
Oh,
and
wow.
um she moved up here a couple years ago, and I met her today because she overheard me talking because obviously I talk a lot, and we got to talking, and she said that 20 I think her shop opened 28 years ago. She's an herbalist, and nobody in New York City understood about herbs or
Mm,
anything like that, and a lot of her job was education and having to explain to people about like the benefits of herbs. And she said, I mean, it took a while, but now like everyone's an herbalist. Everyone
yeah.
now like, it is having a different relationship with plants. So I think like you're just at the beginning of like something that's people are just going to think is normal a couple years from now. So um I think maybe that was the message you needed to hear is like, yeah, you're just the pioneer. That's just what happened.
Thank
People are
you.
gonna be like, what is she talking about? But then like 10 years, 5, 10 years from now, even sooner, you're gonna be like, see, I told ya.
Totally. It's like going up the mountain with like rocks on your back.
Yeah, I mean, even now when I tell people what I do, which is like I'm a multidisciplinary healer and I use like Reiki and astrology, like they don't understand. They're like, what does that even mean, energy? Like, are you like a witch? Are
Oh,
you like,
wow.
and and I'm always like, energy is in everything. And I think when you are attuned to energy and you realize that, just as you were saying, like flowers are just another form of energy. That's all it is.
Totally. I love that.
Yeah. So, if you had one piece of advice for the entrepreneurs or people who are hesitant about pursuing their dreams, what would be your advice?
Find something you love. Find something you love doing, something that fuels you and fulfills you and rewards you and brings you so much joy, because I think you can do a lot of things and be successful at it, but at the end of the day, if they don't make you happy and if they don't bring you joy, I think that's the biggest miss in life.
Totally. 100%. And like you said earlier, you just don't know what's going to happen in your life, so you might as well do something you love.
Absolutely. And that could mean like different things for you, like if you don't know what brings you joy or you don't know what makes you happy in a career or professional level, you just try a lot of different things, like
Mhm.
until you find something that you love, and I'm sure you have interests or hobbies, or like just dig and get curious and learn. The more you learn, the more you'll discover about yourself.
I love that. So, people could follow you on the Instagrams. And do you have a brick and mortar store or just online?
We're just online at the moment.
Yeah, you have to look at these flowers. They're so beautiful. I'm always like, oh my God. So I'll link all of your information down below. Thank you so much, Lisa. This was such a beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura.